Okay. I should take this off. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Village of Board for February 7th, 2022. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Clerk Brady, roll call, please.
Trustee Rufato?
Here.
Trustee Kruger?
Present.
Trustee Lang?
Here.
Trustee Vito?
Here.
Trustee Papantos?
Present.
Trustee Vogel?
Here.
President Horker?
Here. You have before you the minutes of the regular meeting of January 17th, 2022. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Second. Trustee Papantos, second. Trustee Lang, roll call, please.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Abstain.
Okay. Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes this evening.
Proclamations. We have with us this evening Mike Moran, who we recognized earlier in the year, but couldn't be in attendance. He's in attendance this evening to receive the George Hieber Citizenship Award. I will reintroduce that. The George Hieber Citizenship Award was created in honor of a longtime resident, George Hieber, and his many contributions to civic life in Wheeling over many years in a number of capacities. Each year, the Village Board chooses a resident or a group or partnership of residents to receive an award based on their significant contributions to the community. And this year's award went to Mike Moran. Mike Moran is a part of the Police and Fire Commission. Mike has participated in, you're going to tell us how many it is because I will forget them. I do have a letter here from the AMVETS Post. It is with my greatest admiration to be joining in the chorus in congratulating you on being recognized as the 2022 recipient of the Village of Wheeling's George Hieber Citizenship Award. Your service in the public sector as a long-standing member of the Wheeling Fire and Police Board are to be commended. Additionally, your efforts in the private sector in support of the Camp for Children and Teens who have survived severe burns through the Illinois Fire Safety Alliance is to be congratulated as well. Philip Carpentry, Post 66 of the Illinois Division of the American Veterans, is a veterans service organization and as such supports the efforts of not only our armed servicemen and women and veterans, but first responders as well. As such, it is always a great pleasure in echoing the recognition of those who support our local heroes. Again, congratulations on this honor and best wishes in the future. And that is from the AMVETS Post. I will come over there. Carry all of it. I am very happy that you could make it. We have a nice plaque that goes with the recognition. Your name, is it already on the plaque downstairs?
It is, yes.
It is.
See that? I have people who can tell me if I screw up. So I don't. Really, sincerely, thank you so much for everything you've done. I know you have a support crew here with you. You want to come and introduce who came? I'll move this over here. How is that?
Yes, my daughter Kim, her husband Mike, her friend Pam, and my first wife, who probably deserves awards more than I do for what she's done in the village over the years. So anyhow, thank you very much. I'm sorry I couldn't be here last month. I got tied up laying in a bunch of machines, which I'm hopefully done with.
As I said, I am glad that you could make it.
Yeah, I've gone through, it's been a pretty good bout here for the last couple of months. Very quickly, I'm on my third bout with cancer. I beat the first two. This one looks like we got a good handle on it. And I'm here.
Yay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Clerk Brady, citizens' concerns and comments.
None today.
Okey-doke. Staff reports, consent agenda.
All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the board member or citizen so request, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered after all other agenda items. 11A, ordinance declaring as surplus and authorizing the disposal of personal property owned by the Village of Wheeling by recycling, trade-in, donation, or public auction. 11B, resolution waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the purchase of the equipment for the police and fire vehicles and associated repair parts for the Ultra Strobe Communications, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $45,378.90 in fiscal year 2022. 11C, resolution approving a professional service agreement with Engineering Enterprises, Inc. for water main design services in the amount not to exceed $157,439 for fiscal year 2022. 11D, resolution waiving competitive bidding and accepting a proposal for the purchase of one crane truck for EG Equipment, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $144,762 in fiscal year 2022. That's it.
Thank you. Motions or questions? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion trustee Vogel, second trustee Rufato. Roll call, please.
Trustee Rufato,
Yes.
trustee Kruger,
Yes.
trustee Lang,
Yes.
trustee Vito,
Yes.
trustee Papantos.
Yes.
Trustee Vogel,
Yes.
President Horker.
Yes. 13A.
13A, ordinance amending ordinance number 5275, which granted a special use to permit 2 truck freight terminals operations under Title 19, zoning chapter 19.10.030, special uses for the property located at 199 Shepard Avenue, JV Global, docket number 2019-11D.
Excellent. Mr. Clicker, what do we have?
Yes, as Clerk Brady indicated, the applicant JV Global seeks to amend their ordinance of number 5275, which granted a special use for the operation of 2 truck freight terminals operators at 199 Shepard. They need this amendment to increase the number of permitted freight terminal operators and the amount of gross floor area for truck parking. The Plan Commission did hear this request on January 12th and unanimously recommended approval. They did place 3 conditions on the approval, and those were: 1, all freight handling operations shall occur in the building or at the loading docks and shall not within the outdoor surface parking lots. 2, the freight terminal special use shall be limited to a gross floor area of 17,000 square feet and not more than 59 truck parking spaces. And 3, the hours of operation shall be limited to the schedules identified in the project description letter dated November 17th, 2021. As I indicated, this was recommended unanimously at the Plan Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Clicker. Do we have a representative from the petitioner?
Good evening. My name is Lawrence Friedman. I'm here in place of my colleague, Dan Shapiro, who's called away on a family medical emergency. Introduce
Good
yourself,
evening,
please.
Ashley Zinger. Nice to see you guys.
We are in complete agreement with the conditions and can answer any questions the board may have.
Trustee Papantos?
Just one question. I'm a little confused about the hours of operation. What were they originally and what have they been changed to?
Oh, let me see what they changed it to. Some 9 to 5, and I know the other guys are 10 to 8.
What was the original was my question. I see what they've been changed
9
to.
to
9 to 6.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Trustee Vogel, second.
Second.
Trustee Rufato, sorry.
Lang.
Lang?
Lang.
Lang.
Okay.
I thought he spoke, but you raised your hand. I'll just keep my mouth shut. Roll call.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes,
Thank you.
be good.
11C, resolution approving a professional service agreement with
13B.
Huh?
B,
13B.
13B.
Oh, my God. Thank you. Discussion regarding major site plans and appearance concept review, Korean Cultural Center of Chicago, 9930 Capitol Drive.
Mr. Spondilis.
Thank you. As the title indicates, this is a major site plan and appearance concept review. Part of that process is an organized approach to this presentation this evening, beginning with something that I read into the record so that everybody has understanding of exactly what the concept review is and is not. Following my brief administrative read, I will turn it over to Community Development Director Clicker, who will present the project overview and an introduction of the petitioner. The petitioner at that time will have an opportunity to make a presentation, and the board can then ask questions following that presentation. At the end of the presentation, the board will be asked for a consensus vote on the following question. Is the board in favor of the major site plan and appearance concept for the Korean Cultural Center of Chicago? The current request is for a non-binding approval of the proposed major site plan redevelopment. The feedback by the board will be used by the development team as a guide in the preparation of the formal development plan. The outcome of this evening shall not constitute a formal approval or denial of the application. The decision by the board tonight is non-binding and shall not prevent the applicant from moving forward with a formal application. Director Clicker, if you would.
Yes. The applicant to the Korean Cultural Center of Chicago, or the KCCOC, is proposing to expand their existing building located at 9930 Capitol Drive with an approximately 3,700 square foot vertical addition and a 2,000 square foot addition at the building's entrance. The vertical addition will will allow their performance center to have a 23-foot ceiling, and the other addition will add a new covered drop-off area, and they will also be making facade improvements that will reflect will incorporate traditional Korean architectural elements. With the petitioner is here. I believe it is Mr. Eugene Cha is here to represent KCCOC.
Yes, my name is Eugene Cha, and I'm the architecture advisor for Korean Cultural Center. And the project is mainly to enhance the capacity of the performance venue that Korean Cultural Center currently has based on the the needs of community activities that are demanding or increasing in demand. And the highlight of the project is the performance space, which the height is currently very limited. So we're trying to elevate the height of the space so that acoustically and theatrically it'll work.
All set?
Yes. Yes.
Do we, questions from the board? Trustee Lang?
I just have one question. So around it would be the west elevation, is that all glass?
So west elevation, so east side is the Wolf Road side. West side faces, it's the center courtyard and the center of the complex. The whole complex is 4-building complex. And currently, the existing building, you can actually see these punched windows at the very bottom of this elevation here. That's the west side, and that's an existing facade.
Got it. Okay, looks very nice.
Trustee Papantos and then Trustee Vito?
Thank you. I guess my only concern is on the height of the building, will there be any FAA concerns because of the airport directly across the street, and have you addressed that?
My name is Rafi Arzumanian. I'm the architect on the project.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Rafi Arzumanian from A+C Architects. We had a letter of determination about a year ago from them that they determined that this will not have an impact. We are working with them to extend that letter again. As far as we know, and having worked with them, it should not have an impact.
Okay,
Just fall outside of that line.
I know with projects at the airport, the FAA tends to move slowly. I'll be polite and say.
No, we do have the letter. Actually, the renewal of it came up a couple of weeks ago, so everything has been resubmitted just to keep it going until the project.
So you're already on that.
Yes.
And I just was concerned that I didn't want to hold up the project waiting for something. So, thank you.
Trustee Vito?
That was my question, so. I guess I'll ask her a question. What are your hours of operation?
What will you be serving? So where are we now then, Mr. Spondilis?
If there are no other questions, then I would ask the board to consider with a yes or a no consensus vote, is the board in favor of the major site plan and appearance concept for the Korean Cultural Center of Chicago?
Commissioner Brady, would you poll the board?
Sure. Trustee Rafato?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
A wonderful evening.
You too.
13C, ordinance amending Title 8, Public Peace and Safety of the Municipal Code of the Village of Wheeling, Illinois.
Mr. Spondilis.
Thank you very much. By way of introduction, I'd just like to talk about the larger picture here and then turn it over to Attorney Ferrollo to talk about the specifics of the amendments to Title 8. As you recall, a full-blown review of the Village Code was part of the strategic plan and began actually in December of 2020 when the board passed through ordinance amendments to the sign code. Since that time, staff, our legal staff and a consultant have been going through the code title by title to modernize it, to make the changes that we have noted over the years and effectively bring it into modern day standards. Of course, all of those changes are policy decisions that the board will have to make. So we have been going title by title, trying to organize all of those thoughts, corrections, additions, changes, and we will be bringing them to you title by title between now and the end of August. So we begin this evening with Title 8, which is Public Peace and Safety. We will continue on March 7th with the Fire Code and go piecemeal through the end of August when we will bring the largest points of discussion to the combined group of the Plan Commission and the Village Board at our joint meeting in August, where we will deal with Title 17 and 19, which is the subdivision code and the zoning code, respectively. So we thought that was the best way to handle the biggest piece of this process. So between now and then, we will be presenting titles to you for review and hopefully approval, and wanted everyone to know what that process was and what the schedule of events is for the next several months. So with that, beginning tonight, Title 8, Attorney Frollo.
Thank you, Manager Spondilis. With each title, the board should know that all of the appropriate departments have been consulted. Title 8 is entitled Public Peace and Safety. This is mainly a law enforcement title. The changes before you tonight are fairly limited, and they come at the request of the police department. The changes being made are to Chapter 8.04 mainly, which deals with offenses by minors. The most significant change is that the defined term of underage persons is being carried through the chapter to be consistent, and probably the most substantive change is at 8.20.005, which creates an ordinance violation for the intentional obstruction of one's identification from a police officer. And what that provides is that if somebody willfully misrepresents their name, birth date, or address to a peace officer who has either arrested that person, lawfully detained that person, or finds that that person is a witness to a crime, such obstruction of identification is an ordinance violation under this new section, tantamount to obstruction of justice. Not quite that serious. It's an ordinance violation, though, which carries with it a fine of between $75 and $750. Those are the most substantive changes to Title 8. There are several of them, but they are basically all the same change running through multiple sections. I can answer any questions if you have them.
Trustee Vito?
Yeah, what sparked the .005 ordinance? Has this been a problem?
Chief, I'll probably defer that to you. That came from your guys.
With dealing with underage people, it is an issue. If they're adults, we charge them under state statute, but we've had no resources, no way to deal with the younger people in this area. So it came from our youth officers, investigators, and SRO recommendation.
All right. Any other questions, or if there are no other questions or comments, we would need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Rufato, second Trustee Kruger. Clerk Brady, roll call, please.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
13D is presentation regarding Lakota Group Restaurant Row Coordinator Plan Update.
Mr. Ainsworth, you're up.
Thank you, President Horker. As you may recall, last year the village hired the Lakota Group to conduct a corridor study for Wheeling's Restaurant Row. There was multiple components, such as enhancing the identity of Wheeling Milwaukee Avenue, improving accessibility to the Des Plaines River, and enhancing the overall quality of life through this corridor, through the built environment. They're in the middle of this three-phase process. So last year, the Lakota Group and their sub-consultants have wrapped up Phase 1, and that's really what tonight's presentation is about. It's just an update on where they are at, what they have found, and what the next steps are. And Scott Freris, he's the principal of the Lakota Group. He is here tonight. I just want to introduce him. Thank you for being here, Scott. And he's going to give about a 15-minute presentation with a short Q&A afterwards. And then there's a little commercial we're going to do for a workshop in a couple weeks here as well. Take it away, Scott. And Luca, thank you for, oh, yep, he's got the slides. Thank you.
Already. Good evening, trustees. Thanks so much for having me out. I appreciate it. Oh, we're going to go to sleep now. I've got a little presentation for you regarding our progress to date on the Restaurant Row Corridor Plan. It'll suffice it to say I am the lead of a whole host of team members that are putting this plan together. So there's lots of eyes from different perspectives on the process. I just want to point that out, that along with our Lakota group, we have Spaceco Engineering, Christopher Burke Engineering, Hoffman Strategy Group, and Metro Strategies. A whole host of people that represent the engineering aspects, the traffic aspects, the market aspects, the environmental aspects, a whole bunch of stuff that we've got to look at with regards to looking at the corridor holistically. And that really kind of takes us to the process. The process that we built for you was built on 3 phases, the first phase of which we've completed, and we're really wrapping that up with our community open house that Patrick's going to talk a little bit about on the 24th of February. Was focused on engagement and discovery. So in that dialogue of engagement and discovery, the goal was to find out the best ideas, the best solutions, and find out what's really going on in that corridor to make sure that whatever we come up with in terms of a strategy, and important to know that I'm not bringing strategies to you tonight, I'm bringing where we are in the process, what we've found, what we've discovered in our uncovering the corridor, so to speak. And as you all know, and I grew up not far from here, just about 3 miles to the east, things change. The corridor remains the same, the road is the same, but things change, and we need to adapt to it, we need to understand it, and we need to define and bring out strategies that are going to strengthen it over time and make for good investment decisions by the community. So as we've walked through this process, we start with engage and discover. We're going to be moving into the envision and explore. That's where we start developing ideas. When people say, where are the cool ideas? Where are the pictures? Where are the solutions? That's coming. That's the next phase that's coming up. And then once you get past that phase, once we've talked about that, we've shared our ideas, and we defined what I would call achievable realities, things that we can actually get to. You know, at the end of the day, I can draw the most amazing pictures, put the world's tallest Ferris wheel out there, and at the end of the day, we can't get to it. That's pointless. What we really want to do is define strategies that are realistic, that you can achieve, that are within your means. And that falls into the phase, our last phase, which is implement, where we define implementation strategies, we define costs, we define timelines, we define actions to move forward with the process. Just to give you a sense of our first phase, as Patrick alluded to, we've kind of come to the conclusion of the first phase, really wrapping that up with our final workshop, that kind of straddles phase 1, phase 2. We had our kickoff meeting, we've done our field work, we've developed a project brand and website launch, and we've made sure that from a social media aspect, we're pushing this topic out there. I should note that while we've spent some time engaging key stakeholders in the process, which range from leadership to staff to property owners to development owners to developers to restaurants and business owners, good engagement never ends. It doesn't end at the end of a phase. It continues on. You need to constantly listen to the businesses and the community to find out what's going on. It's a evolutionary process, but it's a lifetime process, and that's very, very important to understand. Our initial findings are focused around the topics of land use and physical conditions, market, transportation, environment. And then at the summation of our little discussion this evening, we focus on what we call the key takeaways, opportunities, and constraints. They don't define necessarily the actions that we think we should move forward, but what kind of the key themes that we heard as we moved throughout the process looking at the corridor. And the corridor defined, as you all know, from Lake Cook on down to just down to the airport, a little shy of the Palatine Expressway access. And why I say that, while the definition of the boundaries are based on municipal and certain lines, let's be honest, access is everything to this corridor. And access is, from a regional perspective, that 294 corridor, and understand the dynamics by our east-west connections, Lake Cook, Dundee, and then Palatine Expressway. Those are the gateways to this corridor. They're the lifeblood that are bringing the people and the visitors into that, and we'll speak to that a little bit. Project brand, we've developed a range of those. I spoke to the social media presence, online presence, our interview sessions with stakeholders. We had about 10 different listening sessions over 2 days. We launched a survey, again, constantly trying to get input from the community. As you know, it's tough to get people out. It's tough to get people our approach to it is just keep bombing, keep coming at different angles, try to find different ways to get to people throughout the process, because people always say, I didn't know about it, I didn't hear about it. So our thought is to just keep pushing it through social media and finding opportunities like we have the open house, which is coming up on February 24th, to let people know what we're doing. Important to let them know that their voices are heard and we're still fact-finding and getting the ideas out. Areas of influence, you all know this. There's no surprises here, and that's in terms of understanding the key employment areas. That, again, that 294 corridor, huge employment corridor up along Lake Cook Road, and even along our Milwaukee Avenue corridor as we get further south. Important to understand that. The airport, a major driver in this conversation, not only from the standpoint of a business and an entity, but an identification of your community on the regional map of Chicago. People know Executive Airport, that's right there in the Wheeling area. That's an identifier from a landmark perspective. The Forest Preserve and the Des Plaines River, obviously a big component of this study. They are our eastern edge. There's a value and an obstacle in what they represent to this conversation. And then the proximity to town center, where the energy, we've got the little red dot shown here, that's the heart of the energy of the community right now. That's where kind of the lifeblood of energy and change and new things are happening. Important to know that and understanding what that means and what that does to the corridor in terms of pulling away resources or looking for symbiotic relationships where we should build off of. And then, as I mentioned, the key gateways, the entrance points into this corridor, so important off the regional highway system, and then on the north-south and east-west corridors as you come through the area. We look at land use. I'm not going to get into all the specific parcels, but we looked at parcelization, we looked at ownership, we looked at the actual land use mix that's out there in terms of the commercial versus the open space versus the industrial versus the residential, kind of a mix, but still strong in terms of, if you just look at that color and you squint your eyes, the orange jumps out. That's how I always look at what is the dominant land use. It's still a commercial corridor. It's still got that essence of that retail and that restaurant built into it, but we're seeing change occur on the edges. We're seeing change occur in terms of change to uses over time, and that occurs both on the north end and on the south end. Important to understand the physical conditions. And we think this is a real important driver in the conversation. The physical conditions drive perception, right? Is it look good? Is it look good? And that's a big conversation that we want to have as we move forward. We're starting to see that, the visual aspect, the urban design, the quality of the sense of place drives the value of the sense of place, drives the business, and it drives investment, both from the private sector and the public sector. If you put a beautiful fountain at the corner of Dundee, there's going to be energy around it because you've made a public investment and private sees that and they want to be near it. And that same concept goes for, as we look at Milwaukee Avenue, how do we think about reinvesting the right way to drive the right results to ensure a strong restaurant corridor? We look at pedestrian and bike connections through the area, and we understand the bigger conversation in pedestrian and bike is we need to make safe places for people to walk and to cross in an east-west direction. Those east-west crossings, as we see it up and down the corridor, are really tough. They're really tough. And we need to think about that as we want this to be a place where people want to be. If it's all about driving, that's one thing, but we want to think about the multimodal aspect of people getting here, walking here, biking here, and driving here. All those aspects are critical. We think about the public transit in terms of the PACE bus system, and we want to understand that dynamic. These illustrations kind of show those dynamics, but they speak to us in terms of how we need to think about this moving forward and where those important connections are for people and place along the corridor, particularly in what I would call the opportunity sites. And then we look at the restaurants and the food businesses, and as defined by our little red boxes over here, and there's probably even some smaller ones built into some of these other areas, you can see that there's energy at two particular nodes. There's the north node, and then there's the south node. And the south node represents Dundee Road South, and that north node really is pulling itself up towards the west and up towards Lake Cook Road. The energy is being pulled up into that area. In between all that, we've seen the change, we've seen the retail centers, and we've seen the residential kind of infill into those spaces. Important to know. You don't fight the change, you work with the change, and you identify how you can best support these restaurants in what I would call in a congregate type of setting. And of course, as we look at all these things, we look at ownership. Ownership's critical. We've identified, the key, what I would call the key parcels of privately owned opportunity sites and village-owned opportunity sites and their relationship to the forest preserve system. Again, an opportunity, but also a constraint. Market assessment. I won't get into all the different methodologies and analysis here, but suffice it to say, we were paying attention to the trips generated and defined user group. Where are they coming from? And I jumped to what I would call this next slide because our market folks would tell you this is the defining aspect. They used as part of this process a methodology called geotexting. Geotexting is tracing people's texts and phone calls to find out where they're ordering, where they're going, where they're making reservations, to find out the average user, to find out where they were coming from, to find out their location, and to find out then their disposable income and how often they were coming to these areas to eat or use these services. And that red circle that you see in the center is the area of 80% of your users coming to the area. It represents certainly Buffalo Grove, Northbrook, Arlington Heights, Prospect Heights, Bannockburn, River Woods, Deerfield, Lincolnshire, kind of that core of people coming in. The interesting thing is that average household income is $145,000 within that trade area, which is significantly more than the Chicago metro statistics would show. You're also finding the demographic or the type of population base that's in there. You're finding their patterns of how often they're coming to eat in those areas. And that is starting to tell the story of where our base is in terms of our little corridor in this space in those restaurants. It also is saying that maybe we need to think bigger and broader as we move forward and not just focus and rely on just that particular area. Because we know that the world is changing, our patterns are changing, how we eat, how we live, how we communicate, and how we're using technology, and how our office market has changed radically over the last number of years and not expected to change anytime significantly. So again, starting to think ahead of our marketplace. We're talking in terms of space of restaurants of about 265,000 square feet within this restaurant row, of which there's only 29,000 square feet of vacant. And to be intellectually honest, my team told me that it did include the Tuscany piece, just so that I have that in that place. And again, I speak to the topic of constantly evolving. We started this process and we had a live restaurant. And that restaurant is not live as we move forward. We want to see it come back, or we want to see something fill in. But we've got to be able to show really live time statistics as part of this. We're also noting here about $114 million of spending leakage, money that's going to other places, whether it's going to Northbrook up to Lincolnshire or south of here. So important to know that we want to try and capture that in the area. Our market folks, they do work all over the country. They are what I would call experts in understanding these restaurateurs, understanding their businesses. And one of the things they made very clear to us in today's evolving marketplace is we need to not only capture the dollars in our trade area for dining, but we need to focus on more what I would call casual sit-down and quick service versus formal dining. That's where the market is moving to. That is what we need to think about as we think about supporting the restaurants. Certainly, we want to have Bob Chin's, that anchor type place, but we need to make sure that we provide a variety of options up and down the corridor and understand the dynamics of the restaurateurs, operators, what they need. They're going through a particularly difficult time right now in terms of not only trying to stay open, but even staffing their operations. So again, looking at different types of models that they're employing to stay alive. We looked at environmental conditions. I made the point early on that the environment is our asset and the environment is our obstacle. When I say it is our asset, it's beautiful to have the river there. It's a defining element. And somehow in this whole conversation, we want to be able to see it. Okay? But in fact, we'd love to be able to access it. But then we started applying what I would call the barriers to success. And there are all these blue lines. The blue lines, I call them, they're the elements called floodplains and wetlands and water, navigable waters of the federal government. And there is a whole host. We've identified them over here of what I would call regulatory mechanisms and agencies that dictate what we can do along that water within those areas. And some of those areas impact our, what I would call our development opportunity sites. So we need to be very, very careful and very, very cautious, as I alluded to before, on providing you direction on the right types of investment that'll have a positive return on investment in these areas. Very, very important topic. I know there's a big dialogue in the past about the Riverwalk. The Riverwalk is a big stretch to make it happen. And we ask ourselves the question very early on, is that the right type of investment that's going to really draw the people in here? What we do know in the conversation as we go further through this is we heard loud and clear that there's a lot of opportunity sites up and down this area, smaller ones, bigger ones, and lots of potential for change that's supported in that area. And we know that we need to strengthen these areas. We can see them in terms of their size and scale up and down the corridor. The south, the piece that you own up in here, there's opportunity for change, and there's opportunity for enhancing this corridor through a whole host of options that we've heard and seen through the process. Our stakeholders tell us as we go through the process, common themes, embrace the past, but welcome the future. Okay, we don't want to reinvent everything. This community has a lot of history. This community is on the right path moving forward. There's good change. There's good things happening. We need to keep that momentum going. A destination experience for all. We want to make this available as a multi-generational opportunity, this corridor, and to make sure that it's family friendly, but it also accommodates to a range of demographics and age groups as well. A cohesive identity. We call it the Restaurant Row. It's had that name. It's got that great vibe. We may find in this conversation that that's still a strong brand. We've heard that it is still a strong brand, but there may need to be more to it than just that to get more out of this bigger, I would call it bigger marketing and strategic initiative. Embrace connectivity, walkability, and multimodality. I talked about that early on. That is making sure we accommodate all users within this area. Somehow we need to make this place feel like it accommodates bikes, pedestrians, and cars in a safe environment. We can do that through a whole host of design solutions as we move forward. Support the existing businesses. It's great to think about the new ones, but we've got to spend time, effort, and maybe even dollars in supporting the existing businesses that are out there and help strengthen them and help them build off of their base that they have already. And then set the stage for something new. And this speaks to the idea of, let's look at new opportunities. One of the things that came up is like new businesses that are complementary to what we have out there. Folks were talking about coffee shops, dessert shops, specialty types of what I call more experiential retail or experiential food offerings throughout the corridor. Key takeaways from our team standpoint was outdoor opportunities for restaurants. What we found universally is that restaurateurs need to make sure they have outdoor programmable space. It came up in this pandemic, and you can go anywhere, but what we see in all the communities we're working is restaurants are investing in outdoor patios, gardens, rooftops, fans, heaters, fire pits, all those different things, because people want that, and it's going to be the kind of the trend moving forward. So we need to think about that as we move forward. The location of Restaurant Row is a strength. We all know that from a regional perspective, access, circulation, the 24,000 cars a day that come through both the east-west and the north-south of the corridor. That's a spectacular benefit that we have to build off of. The village itself is a selling point for future businesses. The village is growing, they're reinvesting, and they're creating a new sense of place here. That's super important. Village demographics are an asset, a workforce, opportunity to connect to local institutions. I was involved with one of the first multifamily housing projects across the way, Northgate, with the Riva development, one of our clients. And I remember sitting out here going, when is this all going to happen? Well, now you look around, and 3 years later, it's a totally different place. So time goes by very fast in this conversation, and that's why we're trying to get ahead of it right now. Incentives. for business owners, new businesses, small tenants, existing businesses. We talked about some of that in terms of supporting the existing businesses that are out there. Other attractions and experiential components of this, walkability and promoting Restaurant Row. That's in the promotional aspect of it. What we're finding in this conversation is there is a sense of place that needs to be created and strengthened as a part of Restaurant Row. In order to create that sense of place, we may need to make investments, but we're believing that those areas need to occur in nodes. That's what we're starting to see now, that there are certain nodes along this corridor that lend themselves to strength and energy, and perhaps that's the way of looking at it. We don't have a plan in mind. We haven't scrapped all the plans, but one thing we do know as we went through this is there's, and I want to be honest with you, there's a lot of lift in the concept and idea of Riverwalk. There's a lot of strength in the connection to the river, in the marketing of the river, and access to the river, and perhaps even crossing to the river from a regional perspective. But the lift in terms of developing a community feature or a place out of it may be better to find other locations or address the corridor as a whole from a streetscape, urban design, or creating good public plazas or park types of spaces along the way. So those are the things we're looking at as we go through this. Those are the things we're uncovering as part of our understanding and a little bit of the science that goes into the metrics behind this. So we are, as I mentioned, going to be kind of closing the loop on the phase one process, not closing the loop on talking to the community if they want to talk to us. Always good to do that. But closing the loop on the process that we laid out with the open house that'll be happening on the 24th. And then we go into phase two, and that's really where we start developing the plans, the ideas, the really great public places. How do we solve for this? How do we improve streetscape? How do we improve signage and wayfinding and all those elements that really we want to tie this whole corridor together and make it look like one and make it look like it belongs to Wheeling. That's important because as we all move through these corridors east-west, we can put our signs up, but somehow we want to unify that. I mean, you have a beautiful sign that you guys developed coming out. I just came down Dundee Road tonight, and the sign is beautiful. It's got lights on it, and that defines I'm coming into Wheeling. But once I'm in, how much more of Wheeling am I in as I'm going through there? And that's the thing where we need to kind of solidify from an urban design element, particularly in this Milwaukee Avenue corridor, as people move from the north to the south and cross it at certain areas. So with that, I will stop talking, and I will open it up for any questions or comments.
Trustee Vogel?
Yeah, just two questions. One, you mentioned that there was some cleanup needed, getting rid of invasive species and et cetera, and I imagine other work. At what point in time do we start looking at outside funding, grants, state, federal? At what point in this project?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. As I mentioned, we developed the ideas, and then there's an implementation, phase three. Phase three says, here's where the money is to attach to these specific initiatives. And it's not just the invasive cleanups in Buckthorn along the waterfront. There's a whole host of things, safe crossings through IDOT. I mean, there's a number of different elements that we can go after and look for funding attached to specific projects. But we got to have good ones. We have to have compelling ones. We have to have ones that we can actually support, right?
Okay. The other question is, you mentioned more, you didn't say mom and pop, but that's what I assumed, type restaurants, smaller type, local. Is that kind of telling us that the large 10,000, 12,000 square foot restaurants are not the greatest idea?
No, they're not. No, here's the thing. Those big, large restaurants, all those guys down in the city that are running there, they're all moving out to the burbs right now because the population base, all their clientele is all moving out to the burbs right now because the city is a big, scary place. How can I don't have to anecdotally tell you that or statistically tell you it, but I have an office in the city in River North, and every restaurant in River North, they're not even open for lunch anymore. They're open for dinner. They don't have enough staff. But as the population base, the young families are like scared of the city, they're moving out here, so are the restaurants chasing them out here. So that's a benefit to you going, we've got the space, come on in. That's one model of restaurateur. Then there is the ma and pa, the little local person that might have their opportunity. I think you want to look for a whole range. And in that, there may even be the nationals. But the nationals may have a certain model or a certain style or approach. They may need a drive-through. And those are the certain dynamics that we want to accommodate that full range of opportunities as we move forward.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or trustee Lang?
Do we have any, have we gauged any reaction from the restaurants, existing restaurants on Restaurant Row yet? I'm sure they've been involved
In the engagement part, so they haven't, they're waiting to see what the plans are more than anything else. Yes, we have problems, we got this, we need that, we wish we had more of this, we wish we had more of that. There's a lot of, in the market right now, not only here, but everywhere, it's kind of like they're in a survival mode to keep it going, to keep it alive, and to get people in there as much as they possibly can. I think they're going to be very much excited to see the solutions that we come up with as part of this plan that shows community commitment to helping support them as well. I mean, part of it is their responsibility. They're running their business. I'm running my business. You got to figure out how to make it work in a really weird economic climate. On the other hand, you got to rely on the local community to help you with what I would call the development incentives and or the opportunities to reinvest in this corridor and make it a living place.
I guess that's what I was looking for, is if there's that excited feeling that they have that we're actually
I think so.
helping.
I think they were just happy that we were talking. I mean, like the fact that you're doing something. Not everybody's doing it. Most people are like, I don't know. They don't know what to do. They're kind of frozen. Now, you guys have taken a very progressive approach, and I started this off. This has been a strong corridor for years. This isn't like you're just actually reinvesting in it again. It's been a strong corridor for years and years and years. I told somebody in one of our meetings, I had my high school prom date at the 94th Aero Squadron. I mean, this was always a really popular place, and now we're in a mode of how do we reinvigorate it again? What's the right investment to reinvigorate it?
Thank you.
Yeah. Trustee Kruger?
Thank you, Mr. President. You had said that the river itself is an advantage and a disadvantage, right? Floodway, floodplain. We have done some studies in Wheeling that sort of reduced that area. Has any of that have any impact on this? Do we see those floodways and floodplains reducing in size because of studies that we've done before?
Yeah, well, no, we've taken all your studies and we understand the dynamics behind that. I think the important thing is nothing says you can't build in those restricted environments. It's the cost and the amount of impact to other lands in order to do it. There's that word I always think about, compensatory storage. You've heard of it, right? You want to dig in the floodway, then you got to fill in somewhere else.
That's right.
And so I don't want to say that you can't do anything. I think that river is an asset. I think we got to find a way to broadcast your connection to it, but building in it, actually physical, the engineering, the cost is pretty steep in order to get what we want out of it. And so the question is, if we want to spend money on creating a great place somewhere, whether it was a river walk or something else, is that the right solution? I don't think we have a total answer, but pretty confident there'll be a big lift to get to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trustee Kruger. Trustee Papantos?
Thank you. Going back to the whole Forest Preserve Riverwalk, one of my concerns in whatever we do, and the initial cost seems somewhat prohibitive, but 10 years from now, 15 years from now, who maintains it and what's the cost to keep it viable and worthwhile versus something that just overgrown once again.
Right. But not only that, but I think you guys know by the investment you made in this town center that it's not just building the place, it's operating it and programming it. The programming is what makes it have life and a vibe. Having festivals, having a farmer's market, having a parade, having a tournament or whatever. That's what makes it alive. And so there's going to be an investment into some place, whatever it is. You got to be able to take care of it in perpetuity. You got to program it. Somebody's got to operate it. What is that entity that operates this place that we create on Milwaukee Avenue? I don't have that answer, but we got to put that into the implementation phase, because if we don't tell you that, all of a sudden it's like we got X amount of dollars every year that we have to plow into this. We didn't know we were going to do that. That's super critical.
And that is a concern. And then you also talked about getting from one side of Milwaukee Avenue to the other. I happen to live on the wrong side. I think there's only 1 or 2 legal spots that you can actually cross. I mean, everybody crosses where they want, but it's hit and miss sometimes, and, you know, you're running across, standing in the middle, and hoping nobody wants to make a left-hand turn.
Yeah, you know, that's a big challenge. It's a challenge that requires effort to talk with the state highway department in terms of signalizations and timing and crossing. There are some improved crossing design studies and scenarios that can be integrated as part of our engineering team's thoughts, but you know, we're well aware of that. You have to create a safe environment for that. If you can't do that, then it's not going to work.
I know in the past, the state's always been, nope.
They're not easy to work with, but as you said, in time, like all good things, and when we're talking about time for change in environmental things, they're starting to come around on some improved solutions to safety and what I would call more complete street options. And if we can get them to think maybe a little bit more like that at our key intersections, our key nodes, that would be great. That'd be a big win.
Thank you.
Yep, Patrick, I keep seeing them out of my back of my eye.
Scott, I just want to add real quick. So one thing that we've actually found that's very intriguing right now is Cook County Forest Preserve is doing a whole system-wide trail study at the same exact time we're doing our corridor plan. So we will connect with them, and our goal is to see what potential projects are there that improve access from going west of Milwaukee Avenue to the east side of Milwaukee Avenue, and potentially there could be funding mechanisms through that. And just to touch on Trustee Vogel's question, Metro Strategies is one of the sub-consultants that is hired with the with the Lakota group team. Their bread and butter is to help find implementation funding for the specific projects identified. So I'm happy to say, like, we're going to be in sync with the Cook County Forest Preserve, their staff and their process along it. It may take a little bit longer than ours, but we have a very unique opportunity to influence and say, hey, we'd love to see some connectivity. We'd love to see some projects that benefit this area, and take advantage of that at that same time.
Yeah, good point.
We seem to be out of questions.
We're here if you need us anytime. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you this
Thank you
evening.
for the presentation. Mr. Ainsworth?
Yeah, just a 30-second commercial, I promise.
All right, the open
so
house, please.
With that notion, we have a short survey that's on the website. It's wheelingrestaurantrowplan.com. It's the Phase 1 study findings are on the website, which is a more elongated version of this presentation. And we invite everybody that's a worker, a resident, a business owner, a visitor to Wheeling to come to Village Hall here in this room at 5:30, 7:30 on February 24th. We want to hear from everyone because we think it's a great opportunity. There might be some knowledge, some experience, some ideas that someone has that can add a ton of value to this study. So come on, bring everyone. There's flyers at the end of that table and by the agendas outside. Please tell your neighbors, help us share it on social media. We're going to be blasting a lot of it. So again, I just want to thank Scott for being here tonight, and this isn't the last presentation we'll have on this plan.
Excuse me, Director Ainsworth, was that 5:30 start?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Official communications. Last week, we had Mayor Nick Helmer died. He was, I had not known him long, 5-6 years. He was, I occasionally say this, he's a person that you could model your life after. Many aspects of his life individually could be said to be a success. I mean, he was a first-generation immigrant to America. He became a citizen. He fought in the Army. He was a successful businessman. He was a husband, a father, community leader. Any portion of this man's life, for most people, could be looked at as a success. Nick just had the drive to keep doing more. He's a person that I learned from. He's a person that I could disagree with respectfully, and there was no animosity in the disagreement. He is, he will truly be missed in the community. I am very sorry to see him go. There's really nobody in here, you know, we could ask for a moment of silence for him. Which is probably much more silence than Nick would be comfortable with. I will miss you, Nick, so just wanted to call attention to that and pay a little tribute to a man who absolutely deserved some recognition. So that's all I have under official communications. Anyone else? If that is that, I believe we have the bills for January 13th through February 2nd, 2022. If someone would move to approve them.
So moved.
Trustee Vogel, second.
Second.
Trustee Papantos, roll call, please.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, we have no executive session tonight. That means I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion trustee Rufato, second trustee Kruger, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.